Thanks for staying with us on the Sports Show, Poppy. Time to turn our attention to the AFL tips. We like to bring in the heavy hitters for these ones. So we have brought in John Lewis, joins us, the CEO of Harness Racing. John, thanks for your time.
Pleasure, Phil.
Harness Racing, mate, tough industry at the moment?
Yeah, it is. I think with each of the three racing codes, it's probably never been tougher. I mean, we work in a very competitive environment, and South Australia, we're fighting. You know, we have to compete with the other states. But yeah, it's a tough environment, but it's a great industry. It's a fantastic sport, harness racing. So I was saying to Poppy off air that I sort of focus on the things we can control, not the things we can't. And Sky Racing is a big partner of ours, so that's a pretty tough battle. But so we're sort of trying to make every post to win. But yeah, it's pretty tough at the moment.
Yeah, look, it's tough all round. And although we see the glamour of Spring Carnival, there's a lot of hard work that goes just below the surface of the water. It's like that dark, swimming. And for, greyhounds, for racing in this state, for harness racing, there's a lot of committed people working enormously hard, and not for the rewards that probably a sport deserves, John, in a lot of ways. No,
that's right. And, it is a great product. I mean, trotting historically has had a very strong following in South Australia, and at Globe Derby's got its own challenges. It's an older facility, but it's one thing about getting people back to the trots. We've been working hard in that direction, and I guess the other difficulty is, unlike other states, we get no government funding, and that's the same for the three codes. That's something you just got to deal with. They corporatised all three racing codes back in 2000, so some time ago. So each of the codes were basically cut loose from government. So it's been, I think, a tough battle, but we're determined. I'm generally optimistic about the future. We have to look at new innovations, shorter racing, for example. Historically, punters want, I think that's been one of the attractions of greyhound racing, quick, faster racing. Harness racing in particular, we're looking at shorter forms of racing, more exciting racing, so that's something that punters tell us they want. So we've got to continue to be innovative, and I'm reasonably optimistic about the future despite the challenges.
We need to be optimistic about the footy tips in a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah, look, I was just going to say that, I don't know, Adelaide Oval's done something in this state that probably even the most optimistic person wouldn't have foreseen. And I think horse racing, for instance, look at Victoria Park and go, oh my, what did we lose there? And probably in a lot of ways harness racing with Wayville as well. I mean, having that closer to the CBD precinct is something that long term, I don't know.
Well, exactly. And I think, as you guys know, there was a trend probably 30 years ago, whether it was football or racing or whatever, let's move out of the city and have our own facility. I personally think that was the wrong thing to do. Harness racing was at Wayville, and you meet so many people who went to the trots at Wayville, particularly the older generations who loved it. WA is probably the best example with Gloucester Park, which is right in the city, which is a magnificent facility. And you're right, and I think it was a loss to horse racing when we left Victoria Park. There's been talk about establishing a new facility at Victoria Park that is either a tri-code facility. I think that'd be magnificent if it happened. I'm not sure if it will, but you're right. I think by moving out, you lose some sort of relevance. And I think, as you say, Adelaide Oval is reconnected. I mean, it's been magnificent. And I think having a city-based venue for any sport really ticks a lot of boxes. I mean, Phil, you probably say the same with basketball.
Absolutely right.
I mean, you've got to be there, and it's something I think that our code's probably crying out for. Notwithstanding that, we've committed to Globe Derby, which is geographically the centre of Adelaide, believe it or not. We're in a massive area, particularly residential area, so there's some opportunities there. But you're right, leaving the city, I think it sort of, you lose a little bit of relevance, I guess.
Right. Hopefully, mate, the horse racing harness people will come back out there. Now the pressure's really on. Friday night, Essendon up against Hawthorn at Etihad.
I think that's that should be an easy one. I think I'll go with the Hawks, maybe Essendon next year, but Hawthorn. Phil?
Bobby, Hawthorn?
It has to be Hawthorn,
All right, Saturday night, Power up against the Bulldogs, Adelaide Oval, 110.
That's very easy because I'm a Port Adelaide supporter, and I think we're coming back into some form. So I think Bullies are ripe for the picking there. So I'm picking Port.
I'm going to stick with Port, actually. I'm going to home. I think they're going to do it.
All right, Brisbane up against Fremantle at the MCG.
What? Brisbane and Fremantle.
I think Brisbane. Just can't believe Fremantle's form, but I think I'll go with Brisbane there.
All right, Eagles and the Crows at Domain.
Gee, that's a tough one.
It is hard.
Very tough, that one. being a Port supporter, I'm not a big fan of the Crows, but I'll put that aside. I think I'll go with the Eagles home ground.
The Eagles?
Yeah, I'm going to go Eagles home ground as well.
All right. Geelong versus the Kangaroos at Etihad.
Well,
Kangaroos for me. I think Geelong has slipped a little, so Kangaroos at Etihad, I think they'll bounce back. And
I'm going to go Geelong. I'm going to disagree.
A lot of people have jumped off Geelong. A couple of weeks ago, of course, they lost to Carlton. So has that made people waver?
I think so, yeah.
All right. St Kilda Carlton on Sunday at Etihad.
Oh,
it's a tough game.
Yeah, very tough.
You've got a tough week.
Oh, thanks for that. That's I like St Kilda. I don't like Carlton. I dislike Carlton immensely, so I'll go with the Saints there.
Look, I'm going to go with the Saints as well. They're showing some improvement.
All right. Richmond Gold Coast.
Richmond.
At the MCG?
Yeah, I'm a Richmond man.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a Richmond man. They're perennial underperformers, Robbie. Sorry, mate.
Don't worry.
Gold Coast.
But I'll go Richmond, as much as I don't want it.
All right. The local one, the Giants, up against the Sydney Swans at Spotless.
Oh, gee. I think Giants out at Spotless. If it was SCG, I'd go Swans, but I think Giants.
Look, I'll go Sydney just because of John's dig about my beloved Tigers.
All right, Monday, of course, being a holiday, Melbourne up against Collingwood at the G.
Well, that could be a pretty even match, but I think Collingwood, they're not. I'll go with the Demons there.
I'm going to go Demons as well.
All right, thanks for coming in, John. Good luck with the harness racing too. Righto, Poppy, let's get on with it because there's some serious business here. I want to ask you about Josh Jenkins.
Yes.
So, 27 years old, looks like he's going to kick a 50-plus goal season.
Yes.
Chris McDermott's written an article saying that they shouldn't pay him any more than $600,000. The going price being touted is he's probably at about $8.
Yes.
Is he going to stay with the Crows or go?
I think he'll stay with the Crows, and there's a few reasons for that. One is at that age group, unless it's more than a couple of $100,000. If it's a couple of $100,000, you'd have to consider it. I don't think he's worth $800,000 a year. I'm not even sure that I'm convinced he's worth $600,000 a year. I think his role he plays and the reason why he is so good is there are a couple of other key forwards that means he gets a third defender. If he's going to go to a club and be paid $800,000, there's an expectation that he'll have to be the number one forward. That comes with a whole lot more responsibility that he currently has. That being said, what are you in the game for at this stage? Are you in there to a possibility to play a premiership? Are you in there just to make as much money as you can, a la, let's say, Brisbane? Is there going to be something in the next 3, 4, 5 years for him? Possibly not. So there's a whole lot of balls that are in the air at the moment. I reckon Chris McDermott's pretty much got it around where it should be. He shouldn't go, but Crows shouldn't pay any more than $600,000.
So what you're saying is if you looked at the video, you'd say the style of game really suits him.
Yeah.
Plus, he's got a Betts and a Walker either side of him.
Yes.
Remove those.
He's got a Lynch as well.
But remove those and suddenly it might not be
100%. We saw how much Taylor Walker battled when Kurt Tippett went away.
Yep.
And you see that most teams, whether it was Goods and Tippett at Sydney or Roughhead and Franklin when they were at Hawthorn or whoever it could have been, you really need more than one avenue to goal, one key avenue to goal. So at the moment, he's going super. He really is, as a third forward.
You just mentioned him. Jared Roughhead started his cancer treatment this week. So Ruffy, he's a ripping bloke. I've been fortunate to spend a bit of time with Ruffy. Hope it goes great for him and his recovery's speedy. Alapati Carlisle.
Yeah.
The news is good compared to what it could have been.
Goodish, yes.
So it's a partial tear of his posterior.
Yes.
They're saying it's 10 to 12 weeks, so he might be back and play round 22. Now, he was out prior to that with a wrist injury.
We won't see him
back
this year,
3
surely.
weeks. So you would, well, there's my first question. I can't see why Power would risk him.
No.
My second question is, will the Power keep him?
Look, I don't know what his contract currently sits at, but if he was available next year, I think he's worthwhile keeping on that list as a big, tall footballer. You know, they are limited and they've got some other options there. You haven't seen much of Butcher this year, for instance. I think Carlisle's one that's worth persevering with. And to tell you the truth, although I don't expect to see him this year, he has to give himself every chance because in 12 weeks' time, we don't know where Port are going to be placed. They may be desperate for a big, tall defender leading into the second week of finals. So you've got to be prepared for the unexpected.
Yeah, look, I've had a lot of people come up and say, I think he's done. I'm the other
And he
way.
may well be.
I'm defending him because I reckon he's been the glue of that back line a lot of times.
Yeah.
He's copped some criticism because he gets a bit of puppy fat on in the off-season, but when he's up and going, he's as good as any in the back line. Now, Muhammad Ali, we've got to talk about the great man. Of course,
Geez, you've gone from Alapata Carlisle to Muhammad Ali. That's a big jump.
It is a big jump. And we're talking about a bloke that won 56 of his fights and only lost 5. 3 times he was the only first man to win 3 world championships. And, I mean, there's been an absolute plethora of Muhammad Ali stories and things coming out, and deservedly so. But I want to ask you this. Can you think of another athlete that is above him that is known on the world stage for as long as he's been known?
No.
All right, then is there another athlete that you could compare around the world that is known as well?
Look, I think he is heads and tails above everyone else, and I reckon George Foreman. I reckon he got it right when he said, you know, we've talked about him being the greatest boxer. He's bigger than that. Give that to some other boxer. He's one of the greatest people on the planet. Forget sport. He's one of the greatest people. He could bring people together. And George Foreman said, whether you were a reporter or a lawyer or a doctor or another athlete, you became greater after spending some time with him. That's a sign of a great person who makes you greater as a result of spending time with him. And I reckon that nailed who he was.
Yeah, look, I agree with that. I think he had the ability to galvanise countries, galvanise people. You know, the rumble in the jungle. You know, wherever he went, he was able to galvanise. And you know, his stand in Vietnam to show the type of person he was prepared to take the stand, copped a lot of criticism. Then years later, of course, they all go, well, he actually was right.
Yeah.
And then if you're watching a lot of the stuff that's out at the moment, TV, YouTube, you go, he's entertaining.
He's something
clever,
about him.
He's funny. And people have tried to mimic that along the way, but haven't been able to do it.
A great sportsman, a very intelligent man, a very empathetic man, a very religious man, a beautiful person. I mean, they are qualities that we all wish we had. He had everything.
All right, well, we've had enough poppy. Time for us to go. Hope you can join us again next week, everybody. Bye for now.
Hang on a minute, have we done the outro yet? Can we do that again?
Yeah.